Hello and welcome to the Chinksey Sports Presents, the Premier League Show, episode 29, powered by chinkseyMEDIA. Can't forget that bit. We are back again for episode 29. We are now up and running on Spotify, and we have been gradually uploading our live videos into the video section on YouTube, as well as gradually uploading our past episodes onto Spotify. We currently have 4 episodes on there. Episodes 25, 26, 27, and 28. With more to come, including this one. Stay tuned. Anyway, without any further ado, as there were no early kickoffs last week, we start with a series of 3 o'clock kickoffs. The first one being at St James's Park in the match between Newcastle and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Newcastle returned to winning ways with a resounding victory over an impressive Wolves side who simply couldn't cope with the ferocity and ruthlessness of the Toon attacks. Once Alexander Isak opened the scoring with a 14th minute header, there was only going to be one winner as Newcastle leapfrogged Wolves into 8th place in the league. Further goals from Anthony Gordon, who took advantage of an aberration between Jose Sarr and Max Kilman, with an injury time strike from Tino Livramento, added gloss to the scoreline after the young fullback weaved his way through the Liverpool defence. Weaved his way through the Wolves' defence. With just 6 points separating 6th to 10th position, there's clearly still a lot to play for as the race for European football hots up. Okay, so Newcastle swatted aside an informed Wolves side at St James's Park, who prior to that week had been battered by Arsenal, quite frankly, 4-1 at the Emirates. So they got back to winning ways. Wolves, a bit hit and miss, although I'm sure they probably got one eye on next weekend's FA Cup quarter-final at the Molineux. Okay, following that game was Tottenham Hotspur against Crystal Palace, a London derby. Tottenham got back to winning ways against Crystal Palace after their 2-1 reverse to Wolves the previous week. Incidentally, Ange Postecoglou's side have not won back-to-back Premier League, or had not won back-to-back Premier League games. No, have not won because they still haven't. Back-to-back Premier League games since winning 3 on the bounce in mid-December last year. Despite trailing 1-0 with half an hour to play, Spurs secured their 5th successive Premier League victory over Crystal Palace with late goals from on-loan Leipzig star Timo Werner, who bagged his first goal for the club. Christian Romero and captain Heung-min Son, whose strike condemned Palace to their 13th league defeat of the season. After the returning Eberechi Eze had put Palace ahead with a tremendously struck free kick. Can the 25-year-old midfield metronome secure a place in the England squad? I think so. But one thing's for sure, he's certainly good enough to. The only problem is I think he's a very similar player to James Maddison, and his injury record may count against him in the grand scheme of things. But I think Eze should probably... I fancy his chances in getting named in the upcoming England squad. I don't see why he wouldn't be in there. But to actually get named in the final 23-man squad, it's going to be difficult because you've got a lot of traffic in front of him. People like Phil Foden, people like James Maddison, like I already mentioned, Bukayo Saka. So he's got the quality too, but whether he can actually squeeze his way in there remains to be seen. Okay. After that, we had the game between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. It ended 1-0 to Liverpool. It took a dramatic 99th minute winner from Darwin Núñez to heap the pressure onto Manchester City and Arsenal to extend their lead at the top of the Premier League to 5 points at the time, of course. It's games like this in which Liverpool will look back on fondly if they are to clinch their second Premier League title and 20th overall. As the Uruguayan latched onto Alexis McAllister's carefully crafted clip into the box with a deft header to finally breach Matt Sells' rearguard and set up a barnstorming top-of-the-table clash with Manchester City tomorrow. So Liverpool continued to win at all costs, whether they're swatting aside sides 3 or 4-1 or they're getting last gasp winners. It all amounts to 3 points. So Liverpool remain on top, just ahead of their rivals Manchester City and Arsenal, who play at 5:30 today. Okay, the game between Brentford and Chelsea ended 2 apiece. I predicted a 1-1 draw prior to the game, and of the two sides, Brentford fighting for their Premier League survival, would have taken this. However, based on how the game went, Chelsea would definitely be the more grateful of the two sides after France centre-half Axel Disasi clinched a dramatic late equaliser to earn Mauricio Pochettino's side an equal share of the spoils. Chelsea took the lead after Senegal striker Nicholas Jackson headed in a splendid right-wing cross from Malo Gusto, who has been a revelation this season in club captain Reece James's absence. However, Mads Roerslev, another Dane on the books at Brentford, exploited some woeful Blues defending and promptly equalised as the ball broke to him in the box. A subsequent splendid scissor kick 20 minutes later from none other than Johan Visser, who has been in good form since returning to the side and ousting the mother of all Mavericks and probable self-proclaimed king of housery, Neil Maupay. A Sergio Reguilon header which hit the post could have sealed the 3 points for Frank's side, but he was made to rue it as Axel Disasi powered in an unstoppable header after a delicious Cole Palmer cross, as the game ended in a 2-2 Desmond in an evenly contested West London derby. Brentford live to fight another day as they prepare to take on Arsenal at the Emirates later on this afternoon. Whereas Chelsea, on the other hand, especially in the last few matches, have endured some erratic up and down form after their last gasp extra time defeat to Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final, then their last minute FA Cup 5th round victory over Leeds, courtesy of Conor Gallagher. So Chelsea have been topsy-turvy, especially in recent weeks. Obviously they've lost 6 consecutive finals, 3 of which were to Liverpool. And they've just been up and down recently. So for them to actually snatch a draw wouldn't have been what they wanted prior to the game, but it's better than losing, isn't it? Right. Following that, we had the game between Everton and West Ham United, the David Moyes derby, if you like. Sean Dyche's Everton's winless side are winless in 10 league games, succumbed to 2 added time goals from David Moyes' West Ham side, who clinched their second win on the spin after their own woeful run of form came to an end last Monday after they beat Brentford 4-2. Everton's Portuguese target man Beto, who has been wrangling all season with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, a player who hasn't found the back of the net in his last 20 games, rewarded his manager's decision to start him with the game's opening goal after he headed home a James Garner cross just before the hour mark. He made amends for his penalty miss on the stroke of half-time after West Ham skipper Kurt Zouma handled West Ham stopper Alphonse Areola guessed right with a great save. The aforementioned West Ham captain Kurt Zouma, facing one of his former sides after previously spending a season on loan at Goodison Park, headed in a trademark James Ward-Prowse corner, but didn't celebrate out of respect. With the game opening up and Everton chasing what ultimately proved an elusive winner, an audacious outside of foot curler from Czech midfielder Thomas Souček and an Edson Alvarez breakaway goal saw the Hammers clinch a vital victory away from home in their pursuit for European football next season. West Ham, incidentally, on the subject of European football, they need to pull back a 1-0 deficit next week at the Olympic Stadium as they lost 1-0 to Freiburg on Thursday. Okay, the game between Fulham and Brighton, mid-table face-off if you like, ended 3-0 to the Cottagers. Fulham followed up the previous week's historic win at Old Trafford with a brilliant 3-0 win over Brighton Hove Albion. They got their opener after Rodrigo Muniz forced a mistake out of Brighton defender Adam Webster, allowing former Liverpool winger Harry Wilson space to curl in a delicate strike past Jason Steele to steal a march like Sully on the Seagulls in the third month of the year. The form of the aforementioned Muniz in recent months has been a feature on the show, and the 22-year-old Brazilian forward didn't let up in this one with yet another goal against an ailing Brighton side to make it 5 goals in 5 games for the youngster. With the Cottagers now 2-0 up and cruising, Brighton pushed for a way back into the game, with the likes of Facundo Buonanotte and Evan Ferguson going close. However, second half substitutes Bobby Decordova-Reid and Adama Traore combined to put pay to any hopes of a Brighton comeback as the Spaniard Traore buried the ball past Steele. Marco Silva's mid-table Fulham side are an experienced outfit with a wealth of Premier League expertise to boot. The likes of Bernd Leno, Willian, Tim Ream, Timothy Castagna, Alex Iwobi, Adama Traore and club captain Tom Kearney, to name but a few, have played Premier League football for a number of seasons now. The challenge for Fulham is to see if, after 2 solid years of Premier League consolidation, they can potentially push for a European spot next season. Brighton, on the other hand, look like they've hit their ceiling as persistently selling their best players and replacing them with unseasoned, untried and untested players from abroad will only get them so far. While Chairman Tony Bloom may be making a lot of revenue through a combination of player sales, good league positions and cup runs, the fans may become restless, especially if the money is not sufficiently reinvested in the squad and they continue playing this badly. Nottingham Forest await the Seagulls tomorrow afternoon. Okay, the 5:30 kickoff at Kenilworth Road between Luton Town and Aston Villa ended 3-2 to the away side. Aston Villa handed Luton Town their 5th consecutive defeat in all competitions with an ultimately hard-fought victory at Kenilworth Road. Villa raced into a 2-goal lead with a brace from Ollie Watkins, who is destined to win Aston Villa's Player of the Season award. The England striker already has 21 goals in all competitions and is now just 1 goal behind current Premier League top scorer Erling Haaland, who has 17 goals. Luton, clearly missing Elijah Adebayo, have already shown that they're specialists in comebacks, although a lot of which have resulted in heroic failure. Halved the deficit after their former Birmingham loanee, Tahith Chong, struck after a scrappy pinball session ensued following a corner. They later equalised after Alfie Doughty, who is one of the best deliveries in the league, up there with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Trent Alexander-Arnold, James Ward-Prowse, crossed in for Carlton Morris, who deputising as captain, to pounce. It took an 89th minute last gasp header from Villa substitute Luca Digne, who after injury has found game time hard to come by, and the form of Alex Moreno at left back, to condemn the Hammers to yet another defeat, which now sees them 4 points adrift of safety, albeit with a game in hand on Wednesday against Bournemouth. The Frenchman, who after injury has found game time hard to come by, will be looking to squeeze his way back into the side at the business end of the season. Okay, Sunday's game between Bournemouth and Burnley, or should I say Burnley and Bournemouth, ended 2-0 to the Cherries. Another week, another defeat for 19th place Burnley, who are now a mammoth 11 points adrift of safety with just 11 games left. Goals from Justin Cliver and Antoine Semenyo sealed the Clarets' fate as Bournemouth clinched their first league win of the calendar year and since Boxing Day, where they defeated Fulham 3-0. The win keeps Bournemouth's faint hopes of a top 10 finish alive. Right. The Manchester derby, the big one on Sunday, ended 3-1 to City against Manchester United. Manchester City ultimately gave their City rivals a footballing lesson despite going a goal behind and trailing at half-time to a Marcus Rashford thunderous strike. The England forward, who has struggled for form and endured immense criticism from his own supporters and the press, responded in the best way possible on the pitch. Erling Haaland may be the Premier League's top scorer this season and will probably win it again. In fact, almost certainly will. But my word, does he miss some sitters. The Norwegian inexplicably missed an open goal after a cushion header from Phil Foden left Andre Onana's unguarded goal gaping. Phil Foden, who has definitely been City's player of the season by far, and is currently tussling with the likes of Arsenal duo Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice for player of the season, equalised with a rasper from outside the edge of the United box. The Stockport-born 23-year-old needs to be somehow implemented into a Gareth Southgate team, which also boasts Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane, Declan Rice, and none other than Jude Bellingham. A 1-2 between substitute Julian Alvarez, who sat out his first Premier League match of the season, from the start of course, and Phil Foden, resulted in the latter putting City ahead with a clinical strike beyond Onana. Once City managed to get their noses ahead, the complete stranglehold on the game was beginning to look ominous. An added time goal from Erling Haaland was the icing on the cake for what turned out to be an auspicious afternoon for the blue half of Manchester. And if you call it the weekend, Monday night football between Sheffield United and Arsenal ended 6-0 to the Gunners. After an early barrage of attacks from Arsenal included Bukayo Saka hitting the crossbar in the opening 3 minutes of the match, it did not take long. In fact, it took just 5 minutes for the Gunners to breach the Blades' backline as Wilder's side were hit with an early blow. And no, I'm not talking Deontay, even though I did that deliberately. Arsenal's Norwegian captain Martin Odegaard opened the floodgates to put Arsenal 1 up. I think it's time to start talking up Odegaard as a world-class player, or at least have a debate about it. The fact that he isn't considered one for me is a clear indication that he is an underrated player. With the likes of Bukayo Saka, William Saliba and Declan Rice deemed as the stars of this team, players like Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Magalhaes and Gabriel Martinelli's exploits have subsequently gone under the radar. A Jadon Bogle own goal and a Gabriel Martinelli goal saw Arsenal race into a 3-goal lead after just 15 minutes, and bizarrely saw a group of Sheffield United fans start to head for the exits after 15 minutes. Further goals from summer signings, the ever so improving Kai Havertz and Declan Rice, meant Arsenal led 5-0 away from home at half-time and was the third successive away match that they've scored 5 or more goals in, adding to West Ham 6 and Burnley 5. Their next away game, incidentally, is against Manchester City at the Etihad, with Arsenal 5-0 up and cruising. Bukayo Saka was brought off for the returning Fabio Vieira. The Gunners took their foot off the gas as their intensity dropped in order to conserve energy for upcoming fixtures such as today's game against Brentford and Tuesday's vital Champions League match against Porto, both at the Emirates. The Gunners' only further goal in the match was a belter from Ben White on his weaker left foot, And the former Brighton defender bagged the sixth goal of the game. With Gabriel Jesus seemingly back to full fitness, it gives Mikel Arteta a Jesus Havertz conundrum. Christ. In terms of who starts up front for Arsenal, it could be a situation where it's horses for courses, depending on the opposition's strengths and weaknesses. Similarly, Thomas Partey's timely return for Arsenal gives Arteta a similar headache in midfield, given the form and brewing partnership between Declan Rice and Jorginho. Okay, a quick recap on last week. Last week was a good week for me in terms of predictions. I managed to get 8 correct results out of 10 and 1 correct score, if you like, which was Tottenham's 3-1 victory against Crystal Palace. The only 2 results I got incorrect were Fulham beating Brighton in a match I thought would be a draw, and West Ham beating Everton away, where my prediction was a 2-1 win to Everton. All the other results I managed to get right. All in all, I can't really complain, and it will be hard to top that this week, but bring it on. The first fixture of the weekend is a tasty one, with the early kickoff currently kicked off. Match between Manchester United and Everton at Old Trafford. Smarting from last weekend's perennial humiliation to City rivals Manchester City, Erik ten Hag's Manchester United side, having lost their 11th league game last of the season last week, will be looking to get back to winning ways promptly. They take on an Everton side who will surely be utterly disappointed at the nature of their 3-1 defeat to David Moyes' rejuvenated West Ham side. Sean Dyche's Everton have a wretched record against the Red Devils, which has seen them lose 4 on the bounce and only pick up 1 win in their last 7 against United. They also winless in the last 10 games. And my prediction is that dire streak continues, with United churning out a hard-fought 2-1 victory. The game between Crystal Palace and Luton Town sees Crystal Palace, after their initial new manager bounce in Oliver Glasner, their new manager bounce was brought back to an earth with a thud last weekend after being comprehensively outplayed by Ange Postecoglou's Spurs. They take on a Luton side who will be desperate to arrest a poor run of form which is threatening to derail their survival ambitions. Luton keep giving their opponents head starts. Listen to this. The Hatters have given their opponents a 2-goal head start in 4 of the last 5 games in all competitions, and unsurprisingly lost them all. They are also on the back of a 5-game losing streak in all competitions, and with teams like Brentford, Everton and Palace picking up points, Luton need to start picking up wins sooner rather than later. And if I'm honest with you, I did not actually think they'll reach 20 points all season, so credit to them for giving it a go. However, if they harbour any hopes of survival, they need to leave Selhurst Park with at least a point, preferably 3. But I don't think it will happen. It will be interesting to see though if Luton's former Palace winger Andros Townsend does feature in this one. But my prediction's a 3-1 win to Crystal Palace. The game between Bournemouth and Sheffield United. For some reason, I feel like Sheffield United are playing Bournemouth at precisely the wrong time, and Bournemouth are playing Sheffield United at precisely the right time. I'm going to just cut to the chase in this one and tell you that Bournemouth will win this one, and I think it will be 3-0. All jokes aside though, I think Bournemouth's victory against Burnley last Sunday will restore confidence in a side who prior to that hadn't won for 7 league games. With players like Antoine Semenyo and Dominic Solanke, who I bring up frequently on this podcast, over the course of the season, agitating for more goals. Not to mention Justin Kluivert as well, who's hit form recently. They'll absolutely relish coming up against a Sheffield United side who have shipped 72 goals in just 27 games. They are also on a 3-game scoreless losing run, and like I already mentioned earlier, I think that will continue as Bournemouth triumph 3-0. Okay, a really good competitive game in mid-table is between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Fulham at the Molineux. Make no mistake about it, Wolves lying in 10th place and in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup are pound for pound having the best of seasons of all the teams in the league. To add further context to their fledgling league position, they are only 6 points behind the Manchester United side, who they've actually lost twice to in the league this season, and are well and truly in the midst of a fight for a European spot this season, whether that be a Europa League spot or Europa Conference League spot. Fulham, similarly, but to a lesser extent, are sitting pretty in mid-table, knowing that a victory over Wolves would actually see them leapfrog the Midlands outfit. One thing I found about Gary O'Neill's Wolves outfit, though, especially of recent, is that they have the propensity to do the opposite of what you'd expect, results-wise. For example, Wolves went and beat Tottenham and Chelsea away, but lost at home to Manchester United and Brentford. 2 games I'd thought they would lose, and 2 games I'd thought they'd win. Wolves will start this match as favourites, despite Fulham coming into this brimming with confidence and on a 2-game winning streak. I think Wolves will come out on top and edge it 2-1. Famous last words. Okay, the game between Arsenal and Brentford is the 5:30 kickoff this evening. Arsenal's phenomenal recent form has seen them win 7 straight league games, scoring 31 goals in the process, just to keep pace with the top 2 who face off tomorrow. Most importantly, they know that a victory will see them leapfrog both Manchester City and Liverpool into top spot, but will also ensure that they end the weekend inside the top 2, no matter what the result is tomorrow. With Arsenal's on-loan Brentford goalkeeper David Raya ineligible to feature against his parent club and add to his league high of 9 clean sheets, forgotten man Aaron Ramsdale will get a rare opportunity to feature for Arsenal today in what could possibly be his last ever appearance for Arsenal against a Brentford side who have already lost twice to the Gunners, both 1-0 at the GTEC Stadium this season. They're also winless in 4 and have only 1 win in the last 7 games. That being said, their upcoming fixtures are very winnable and 3 or 4 more victories should be enough to secure survival for the Bees, especially with Brian and Mbeumo soon to be back from injury. In fact, I heard their manager Thomas Frank say yesterday that he should be back after the international break in time for the Manchester United match. All eyes will be on his mate though, Brentford star Ivan Toney, who has been heavily linked with a summer move to Arsenal. Everything points to a comfortable home win for Arsenal, and I was to and fro in between a 3-0 or 3-1 win for Arsenal, but I think considering the way Arsenal have been defending and dominating fixtures of recent, I have gone for a 3-0 win because I cannot see Arsenal's backline being breached. Okay, so to the Sunday fixtures, for me the second most exciting stroke important game of the weekend is between Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur. This is almost like the top 4 grand finale with the 2 sides just outside the title challengers, Aston Villa and Tottenham, facing off at Villa Park tomorrow. Villa have this game sandwiched in between 2 crucial Europa Conference League matches with Ajax, a tie they're expected to comfortably circumnavigate in a competition that they're expected to win. The first leg between Villa and Ajax ended 0-0, leaving the tie finally poised going into Thursday's second leg. Tottenham, who are currently 5 points adrift of Villa with a game in hand, will feel like this is almost last chance saloon if they are to have realistic ambitions in overtaking Unai Emery's side into 4th place. With Manchester United some way behind these two, it's almost a foregone conclusion that these 2 sides in whatever order will be 4th and 5th respectively in the league, and whether or not 5th place will be sufficient for Champions League qualification remains to be seen. However, it's likely that we will have 1, if not 2 or 3 English sides in the respective finals, as Manchester City, Liverpool and Aston Villa are the favourites in the Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League. So you'd think at least one, if not all of them, will reach the final. Plus, you have Arsenal in the Champions League too. So yeah, I've gone for a 2-2 Desmond in that game. I think it's going to be an exciting fixture, just as the first game between the two was, in a game which Aston Villa edged Tottenham out in a 2-1 away win. Okay, the Claret derby, if you like, Claret and Blue derby, if you like, between West Ham and Burnley. See 7th placed West Ham, who finally got the monkey off their back with back-to-back victories over Brentford and Everton. David Moyes' Hammer side will want to navigate this fixture with as minimal fuss as possible. Like Aston Villa, Brighton and Liverpool, this game is sandwiched between two European ties, with all 4 of the English sides playing away first. West Ham did lose that game 1-0 to Freiburg, so they could potentially rest players for this game with an eye on next Thursday's second leg. Burnley are probably the most ideal opponents, as they've been playing like a side resigned to a resignation from the league, with their inevitable relegation looming. Vincent Kompany, who last week I said I thought would call it quits at the end of the season and resigned or leave by mutual consent, has seen his side lose their last 4 games and haven't even scored a goal in the last 3. And I expect West Ham to continue that trend and put them to the sword with a 2-0 victory. Okay, so the next game is the one between Brighton and Nottingham Forest tomorrow. Quite frankly, Brighton's recent form, all in all, has been horrific. If we're judging Roberto De Zerbi's side by our now high standards, lofty standards, they have now set themselves over the last few seasons. They have just 2 wins in 8 league games, and one of those was against Sheffield United. Does that really count? They have lost their last 3 games without scoring after their 4-0 battering at the hands of AS Roma, all but ended their hopes of qualification. The manner of their 3-0 defeat to Fulham last weekend will be alarming though, given the fact that they'd crashed out of the FA Cup to Wolves the previous week. So it looks like the season's falling apart, really. Nottingham Forest are starting to look like if Luton are to stay up, it will be at their expense. So it looks like basically Luton realistically can only catch Nottingham Forest at this moment in time. They've been awful recent. They've won just once in the last 7 league games after a dramatic 99th minute defeat to Liverpool last weekend meant that they failed to pull further clear from 18th place Luton, who also lost. Although Brighton's league position is not a cause for concern right this minute, it's starting to look like their season's petering out. And after recent underwhelming results and cup eliminations, I don't think finishing 11th or 12th in the league would appease the fans. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. It wouldn't even surprise me if Forest were to nick a victory, but I don't think they have it in them. So I've gone for 1-1. Okay, now we're into the big one tomorrow. The big top of the table clash between Liverpool and Manchester City. In the game of the weekend and season so far, it sees the top 2 face off, although it will probably be second v third after Arsenal play in a finely poised matchup. Liverpool, who have held on to top spot for the past 3 months, have already secured 1 trophy in the Carabao Cup on their quest for an unprecedented unofficial quadruple. They're in the midst of an injury crisis, and having dispatched of Czech champions and current league leaders Sparta Prague with consummate ease on Thursday, 5-1 away, they have rendered the second leg at Anfield on Thursday a meaningless dead rubber. Manchester City and Pep Guardiola have a horrendous record at Anfield, a place where they've only won once in 8 trips to Merseyside, which was during COVID in a 4-1 win. Earlier on in the season, they managed to end their hoodoo at Spurs' Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, a place they didn't even score in previously. But this will be a totally different proposition. No doubt about it, Anfield is always and has traditionally been the toughest place to go in English football, be it how good the teams have been over the years and the hostile atmosphere that the crowd can create. The last team to beat Liverpool at Anfield was Real Madrid, who won 5-2 in the Champions League last year. I think it was about March time. And the last team to beat Liverpool at Anfield in the league was Leeds United in October 2022. So they've effectively not lost at home in the league for 18 months. An Arsenal defeat aside, Liverpool have won 8 straight matches in the Premier League. Similarly, a Chelsea draw aside, Manchester City have won 16 games on the bounce in all competitions and 9 on the bounce in the league. Obviously, Chelsea draw aside. So something's got to give. With Liverpool almost certainly missing Trent Alexander-Arnold and Diogo Jota for this one, I don't think they'll win it. But with the emergence of Conor Bradley and the form of Joe Gomez and Darwin Núñez, I think Liverpool have enough strength and depth to cope and will use the energy of the fans to help guide them through what I ultimately think will be a hard-earned point in a 1-1 draw, which I think both teams would probably take, to be fair with you. Okay, Monday's game between Chelsea and Newcastle United is the last game of the game week, but not of the podcast. You'll see why. The nature of these two sides' inconsistent seasons has resulted in both being situated in mid-table with hopes to squeeze into Europe through the back door. Just 4 points and 4 places separate these two, with Newcastle in 8th place and Chelsea in 12th. They have already met twice this season. The first saw Newcastle emphatically dispatch the Blues with a 4-1 win at St James's Park. The second of which Chelsea just about edged with a dramatic Carabao Cup quarter-final victory following a last-gasp Mikhailo Mudryk goal which forced a penalty shootout, which Chelsea won. As both teams still in the FA Cup next weekend, it is still possible that they could meet for a 4th time this season, although Newcastle face an improbable task of toppling holders Manchester City at Etihad. Chelsea are hit and miss this season, but generally have been at their best the better the opposition, especially at home. They're unbeaten at home against the top 3, drawing all 3, but I am going to go for a 2-1 away win for Newcastle United here. Right. Game week 17's fixture between Bournemouth and Luton has been rescheduled for Wednesday, so I've put that into this podcast. This is a replayed fixture after Tom Lockyer collapsed earlier on in the season with the scores poised at 1-1. So the match will be replayed in full on Wednesday. I already mentioned earlier that Bournemouth, who have already beaten 19th placed Burnley, they take on 20th placed Sheffield United today. And they take on 18th placed Luton Town on Wednesday. Luton, who I've already predicted to lose at Crystal Palace later on today, cannot afford to lose these 2 games and ideally must pick up 4 points. I think it will be a tall order for them to even pick up 2. If anything, I think they've got more of a chance of doing something against Crystal Palace than at Bournemouth, and I'm predicting more woes for the Hatters in a 3-1 defeat. Right. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and you'll find the links to the various podcast outlets such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts in the description and the pinned comment. So see you next week for what will be a much shorter episode, as there'll only be 4 Premier League matches due to the FA Cup quarterfinals and subsequent match postponements. Bow!